Okay.
I request a most benevolent outcome for the results of this talk to be even better than I can hope for or expect.
Yes, I have asked that same most benevolent outcome. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Lone Star Dowsers. We're on Zoom tonight, and we have Tom T. Moore, who's a best-selling self-help author. And from Health Magazine, he's got multiple books. He's got The Gentle Way, a self-help guide for those who believe in angels. The Gentle Way 2, The Story Continues. The Gentle Way 3, Master Your Life. And also a book called First Contacts, which is Conversations with an ET, and Atlantis and Lemuria. And he does all sorts of amazing
Lost Continents Revealed.
Lost Continents Revealed, yes.
Yep. Otherwise, you might not find it, really. There's a lot of Atlantis and Lemuria books.
Yeah. Tom is an amazing person, and his resume is probably too long to go into here, but if there's anything you want to add, Tom, please just go ahead.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. I am, I've been mostly a business person most of my life, and I really never thought I'd be doing this kind of stuff. But I ran across a number of years ago, I was reading an article in the Sedona Journal of Emergence by a gentleman by the name of Robert Shapiro, who was channeling a being by the name of Zosh. And Zosh said at that time, you can request benevolent outcomes in your life. And for some reason, that rang a bell with me. I had been trying all sorts of different modalities. If anyone has heard of the law of attraction, it seemed to work a little bit, but it didn't seem to work. So I started requesting benevolent outcomes, and I found it worked perfectly. And I'd never been able to say that about any modality that I'd ever tried out. And so I started working with it, and I finally came up with and this was kind of like inspiration. I came up with a way for everyone to say this, no matter what religious beliefs they have. So whether you are a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, Hindu, it doesn't matter. You can say this, and you can believe it goes wherever you believe. Now, in my case, I've been told in my meditations, which I'll get into how I got doing that in a minute, but you can believe wherever it goes for you, and it doesn't matter what your belief is, it works perfectly. So that's, and it's within your soul contract. So, or some people call it soul path. So this, I started doing this more and more. I started saying, I request a most benevolent outcome for drive to the post office, drive to the store, real easy, mundane kind of things that I got immediate feedback on. And so I started writing about it. And I even sent in an article to the Sedona Journal, and they liked it so well that they printed it and even had to put it on their website, which was quite a number of years ago. And so it wound up that I've been doing a column for them for probably over 10 or 15 years. I
Tom, I'm going to pause you for just 1 second, just in case anybody who's on with us who doesn't know what a most benevolent outcome is. Correct me, right? It's a request that you say out loud to your angels. There's a way to say a benevolent prayer for others, but a most benevolent outcome is a prayer for yourself. So I request a most benevolent outcome, fill in the blank, and then, thank you. And is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So
and sorry I didn't make that clear. So, so eventually, as I said, they started having me do a column where I would send them in all these stories that people were sending to me um, about their success in using this modality. And then, lo and behold, in 2005, my wife and I went to a seminar put on by Dick Sutphen, Sutphen, in Sedona, and on increasing your psychic abilities. And so he would put us into an altered state 3 and 4 times a day. At the end of the day, you'd feel like you'd had a whole bottle of wine. You'd be just higher than a kite. And so on the second day, I decided to communicate with this Indian shaman by the name of Reveals the Mysteries, who Robert Shapiro had channeled for me, and I'd asked Reveals the Mysteries if my sole contract was to was to support Robert's work, and I was told no, it's not. So after that, I thought that very strange, and then on that second day of the seminar, I said, when he put us under, we were supposed to automatic write, and I said, Reveals the Mysteries, are you there? And he said, yes, I am, Tom. And I said, wow, this is really neat. And so I asked him about that. And he said, Tom, he said, you're a shaman living at the same time period I am, which was the mid 1600s in the Western United States. He said, your name is silent. I don't want to say silent witness. My wife and I have been watching that show on Amazon. Your name is Stillwater, and you decide to reincarnate into the 20th and 21st centuries in order to reintroduce people to the gentle way. And I said, no, I'm a business guy, because I've been in international film and TV program distribution since 1982, so long time. And I thought I was just going to retire that way. And he said, no, you're going to write books. I said, okay. And I wrote The Gentle Way 1, which is, let's see if I could do that. Where are you? Oh, great. Pardon me, guys. It was set up and then it went away.
Click from the beginning. See if that does it. Far left.
Yes, it's supposed to be from the beginning. There we go. I hope. Okay. Well, I went one slide too much. There we go. So there's The Gentle Way, a self-help guide for those who believe in angels. And so then before too long, The Gentle Way 2 came along. So there it went. And I started asking questions. First of Reveals the Mysteries, learned a lot about how hard life was back in the 1600s for Indian people, because they walked everywhere. They didn't have horses. They didn't have canoes at that time. So it was a pretty hard life, especially in the mountains. They were always hungry in the winter. And but then eventually I started talking to my own guardian angel, Theo, and I started asking questions. And I started putting out a newsletter. And this newsletter, I started in 2007 thinking it might be monthly. And before long, it was not only weekly, but it was anywhere from 9 or 10 up to 14 pages long with all these questions that people were sending in to me from all over the world to ask during this meditative state. So And that brings me up to something else. Tonight, I'm going to share with you some information that has not been in my newsletter yet. It'll be in my newsletter probably next week, because I was going to be talking to you guys about how the Gentle Way ties in to dowsing. I asked Theo to give me information about it, and so I will be able to explain how the Gentle Way not only ties in with dowsing, but also um, uh, can make your dowsing experience even better and more accurate. So that's what we're going to do.
Sounds great.
Now, requesting benevolent outcomes, MBOs. When I first started trying and experimenting with this, I was just saying benevolent outcome. And I wanted to abbreviate it, and it sounded like BO. So I wound up adding most benevolent outcomes. So that's how you get MBOs. Now, Webster's dictionary definition is benevolent means doing or inclined to do good, kindly and charitably. Okay? So you say, I request the most benevolent outcome for, thank you, just like we were talking about a minute ago. Now, here are the MBO rules. You must request the assistance, okay? You can't just expect your guardian angel just to do everything for you. You have to ask for the assistance. And it must be benevolent, not only for you, but for everyone connected with the crest. So as an example, if you were a soldier and you were in a war, you can't say, "Oh, I request the most benevolent outcome to kill my enemy before he kills me." You'd have to say, "I request the most benevolent outcome that I get back from this patrol safely," or whatever, and it'll be benevolent for not only you but also for your supposed enemy. So you have to keep in mind, it has to be benevolent for everyone in the request. And it must be said out loud or in writing. And it's very important. I've slowly but surely continued to learn more that this verbal request, scientists are one day going to prove that saying things verbally has a great deal of energy. And when everyone says the same prayer at the same time, or virtually the same time, it becomes great energy. So there's a lot of energy that is produced by a verbal voice. And so that's, even as an example, I've been told that the stones of the pyramids were moved by people saying a specific sounding chant that lifted the weight of these giant blocks of stone to move them to the pyramids. So our scientists have a lot.
Well, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. There is no limit on the number of times you can request benevolent outcomes. And some people have said, "Oh, I don't want to bother my guardian angel or God or Jesus or whoever you happen to believe. I don't want to bother them with a big request." And I'm told that your guardian angels love to do things for you. They want to do things for you, but you have to ask. And that's the major thing. So keep that in mind. Just ask. Trust in the process. Start with the mundane to build your trust that this works. And it'll be the little things like the drive to work or the store or post office or little things. And then you start working up to the bigger things, which we'll get into. So samples of MBO requests. you can request an MBO for a perfect job, a perfect mate, or a perfect home. But each of those are really big requests. So don't expect that you're going to see results the next day. You know, I've actually had ladies that have emailed and said, Tom, I requested a benevolent man for me, and it's been a month and nothing's happened yet. This is not working. So, so you gotta be patient on these things.
Have there been people who found the perfect mate?
Oh yes, absolutely. Um, that's and uh, I'm for the perfect home example. My wife and I decided we were going to downsize, and because we were getting on towards retirement, we thought hadn't happened yet, but that's what we thought we were going to do. And so we decided to downsize our house. And so she started looking for houses. And she would call me out of the office every other day. Oh, come look at this house. Oh, let's look at that house. And so I started saying, I request the most benevolent outcome for this to be a house for us, knowing that if it wasn't, Theo wasn't going to let us buy it. And so finally one day I said, okay, I request the most benevolent outcome for the perfect home for us. And the very next day she found it. And that's where we're living, have been living since 2008, I guess it was. So perfect place for us. So perfect jobs. People write to me all the time. Oh, fantastic! I requested a benevolent outcome for the perfect job, and lo and behold, 2 days later, I got called to come in for a job interview. So there's all sorts of proof on this. My Gentle Way 3 book, my publisher came to me, who happens also to be the publisher of the Sedona Journal, and she said, because I've been sending these stories in once a month, all these stories that it would accumulate, and so they came to me and they said, we'd like to put out a whole book with nothing but all these MBO stories. We'll arrange them in chapters. So it'll be a chapter on the home, chapter on your job, a chapter on medical, chapter on gambling, and so on. And so that's how that book 3 came about. All I had to do was write an opening and a closing, and they put everything together. So it was an easy book.
Okay, how does it work for gambling?
Oh, okay. For the most part, to win a lot of money is a soul contract thing. Okay, so in other words, it could be on your soul contract in one life to be absolutely poverty stricken, and on another life to be absolutely wealthy. So you don't know, because you don't know your soul contract. But I found that the best thing for people to do is to request, if they're going to be gambling, if it's going to be bingo or it's going to be a lottery or whatever, if you have a specific purpose that you need that money for, then you have a really good chance of it coming true for you. So as an example, my family and I went on a cruise at the Gulf of Mexico, and during the cruise, on the very last day, they had a cover-all bingo pot, and so I requested a benevolent outcome, and I wound up. There was a kid about 12 years old or so, excuse me, sitting right next to me in the where they were calling the game. And both of us stood up at the same time and said bingo. And people probably thought it was my son, but he and I won half of an $8,400 pot. And we were able to use that money because at the same time, one of the decks had a flood, and so it bother us at all, but they gave us 50% off on the next time we did a cruise with them. So we got a free cruise for the amount of money that we made off of the bingo. Now
and did you have that intention before you started?
I'm sorry?
Did you have that intention before you started?
Not to have two cruises, but I had a bingo, I requested a bingo, I requested a benevolent outcome to win the bingo pot. Or in fact, I requested the bingo, an MBO to win any of the bingo pots. And I didn't win any of the ones up to the fill all the spaces on the bingo card. And so I said, maybe it's not supposed to be for me to win. And then I won. Now, the most money that I've ever been told that anyone won, and I've had other people win like 50,000 and, some really good amounts. But a lady up in Canada had a family vacation home that the people that owned it in their family died, and there were going to be a ton of taxes and everything, which they could not afford to keep this family vacation home that had been in the family for generations. And so she requested a benevolent outcome to win the Canadian lottery, and she won 1 million Canadian dollars, and they were able to keep their family vacation home. So that's the most that's ever, but that was a specific reason that they needed it for.
Thanks.
Okay. So as you see, identity theft. All you have to say is, I request a most benevolent outcome that my identity in all forms be safe and secure from now on. Thank you. It takes care of identity theft. Traveling, drive to work, to the airport, security, everything. Step by step, you can request benevolent outcomes. And you can request MBOs for business each day. And that's especially if you're in any kind of commission type business, real estate, or you name it, wherever you, I even have waiters and waitresses requesting MBOs when they work, and they do, they've written to me saying how much more they earn when they requested MBOs than they did when they did not.
Do you think it needs to be more specific or general?
You can make it specific. It just depends on the circumstances, because like, you can't say, I request a most benevolent outcome for this particular job, because there may be something better on the way. You say, I request a most benevolent outcome for the perfect job for me. So you have to word it so that you allow for your guardian angel to do something better for you than you could ever imagine.
So the perfect client, or
the perfect client.
instead of it having to be one particular person or one particular sale or something like that.
Right. And the best sale for you for that day, or whatever it happens to be, you have to, you can play with it after all. You're going to work every day. You can try it one way and then try it another. It's, this is not something that's absolutely set in stone, but you have to understand you have a soul contract, you have a soul path. And as long as that MBO request is within the guidelines of your soul path, then you'll get it. But if it, let me give you an example. Several years ago, a friend of mine who actually used to live years before me, like 2 blocks or 1 block from where I used to live, he was a big sailor and sailed even up the Seine River, and he wound up meeting his wife, and to this day, he and his wife live in Paris. And so he had a connection to some books written by an English writer by the name of Meany or something like that, and they were spy novels set in World War II. And so I went all over the place trying to raise money to do this series of books. I went to Budapest film markets and the American film market in LA and Paris and St. Petersburg, Russia, sorry, St. Petersburg, Russia, all these places trying to get money. And each time I would get close to closing the deal, something really weird would happen and it would fall apart. And finally I asked Theo, I said, Theo, I've been requesting MBOs on all these meetings and everything I've had, and still nothing's happened. And so he said, Tom, he said, if you had gone down that road, you would not be reaching the number of people that you're going to reach with your books and your talks. And so I said, okay, and I gave up trying to raise money for movies from that standpoint forever. So it all depends on your soul path. You have to keep in mind that there's a reason for you to be on that path. You can request work for meetings and even abuse. If you're suffering abuse at work, whether it be verbal, sexual, whatever, then you can request a benevolent outcome for either it to end, or if you need to go speak to a higher authority or even someone outside the company, then you can request a benevolent outcome the results will be even better than you can hope or expect.
Tom, can you tell us how we might be able to use it for a real estate transaction?
Okay. Well, the question would be, is it before you sold the house or is it during the sale? So in other words,
I have two scenarios. I have a client who I'm helping to work with a sale closing, or for them to have an offer on a sale on a house.
Yes.
And then I have myself personally, it's in the middle of the sale, but we keep ending up with blocks, and it just never closes.
It ends up with what?
Blocks where we're unable to close.
Oh, okay. So let's say the first one. You request a benevolent outcome for the perfect buyer for your client's house or property, whatever it happens to be, and so you're requesting an MBO, but you also say a benevolent prayer. You say, I ask any and all beings to aid and assist in bringing the perfect buyer for my client's property. Thank you. So that's an example of a benevolent prayer. So you've sort of covered it two ways. One, the MBO request is supposed to be specifically for you, okay? And a benevolent prayer is for what you say for other people. Now, for the blocks, you can say, I ask any and all beings to aid and assist in removing any and all blocks to the sale of this property. Right? And you can also word it as an MBO request.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your help.
Okay. Now, dangerous, we've already covered bingo. I found that it works a little bit on the gaming tables, but not very much. I've earned, I've won $100 here and there, but I'm not a real big player, so don't. Again, it gets back to this where you're on, and if it's just something, but not winning a lot of money by pulling the handle and winning $1 million or something. So dangerous places and times. There are times that have been told to me, that people have written to me about really dangerous circumstances. As an example, one lady that had recently moved to a farm in Kansas, there was a tornado bearing down on their house. And so she grabbed the kids, ran for the basement, and at the same time, she requested an MBO. And the tornado lifted up and went right over her house. So that was a really dangerous time. And let's see, what else? One lady wrote to me saying that her daughter was walking down a street in a California town, and this van with some guys started following her. So she requested an MBO for her safety. And just then, several people came out of a house, and the van saw them, and they drove away. And she says, Tom, I know that saved them. And so I've used it, especially in travel. I've avoided a wreck on a freeway from Nice, France to Cannes, where I was going to be part of a film market. And a car wrecked out right in front of me, and I was able to easily get around it. I've had another time where the car just had a big wreck, and again, I just barely missed being part of it. So there's request MBOs. It'll be good for you.
You have abuse on there. What would you say about that?
Yes, on abuse, I'm trying to think of an example. If you're suffering abuse in an office, you can request a benevolent outcome, either to find a better place to work, to be able to bring in some type of authority. And there's things that can happen that will be benevolent for you, and to get rid of the person that's causing the major problem. So these are benevolent requests. And also, you can also send, and this is one thing I found really works, but it shouldn't, but it does, is you start sending white light to that person every single day. Beautiful white light. And most of the time, people that are into that kind of stuff, abuse and all, they can't stand that much light coming at them day after day after day, and eventually they'll move, they'll leave, they'll do something, but it will not involve you anymore.
Great, thanks.
So, and I'll give you one quick story on that. There was a guy that used to that tried out to be a kicker for the Dallas Cowboys, and he and I shared a charter jet to Las Vegas. And one day he decided that he didn't need me anymore, and he said, "I'm not. You're going to be no longer able to have half of this plane." And this cost quite a bit of money. It cost me about $50,000, and this was years ago. So it was a lot of money then. And I said, somebody's going to shoot that guy one day. He's really a so-and-so. And lo and behold, he's coming back from Acapulco, driving to Mexico City, takes the wrong turn, gets attacked by banditos, and they shoot him, but didn't kill him. And so after that, I said, oh gosh, I don't want that on my conscience that I contributed to him being shot. And so from then on, I sent white light to him every day. And eventually his own wife hired somebody to shoot him and killed him. But at least I didn't feel like I contributed to it. Let's see here. I don't know what happened. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Radiant effect. That's when you're driving and there are people in the car with you and you request a benevolent outcome for your drive. And there's this benevolent effect of people in your car being protected at the same time. And even in other cars around you. Benevolent prayers, that's what you say for other people. I ask any and all beings, thank you. Now, one of the things that I discovered about the Gentle Way, when I first talked to Reveals the Mysteries, he had said that I was reintroducing the Gentle Way to everyone. And I started thinking about that, and a couple of years went by, and I was wondering, well, is the Gentle Way like 600 years old, 1,000 years old? And so I asked Theo, and he said, "Oh, Tom," he said, the Gentle Way dates all the way back to the times of Atlantis, when you had 1 million people requesting benevolent outcomes at that time in whatever language the Atlantean people spoke. And I was inspired to create the Gentle Way. So that's where that came about. And so that happened about 12,700 years ago. And I eventually wound up, and that's in this book, Atlantis and Lemuria, the Lost Continents Revealed, I eventually wound up migrating with 25,000 people to Egypt. And that's where we resettled, because 200 years later, the Atlanteans destroyed each other in a horrible war that was used with laser weapons. So that's how the Gentle Way began. Now, if you want to talk to your own guardian angel, you can say out loud, "Guardian angel, what name shall I call you?" In my case, Theo told me, he said, "Tom, you can call me Tom, Dick, or Harry, but Tom would be a little bit hard in your meditations." And that, I started thinking about, well, what can I call Theo? And one day, a couple of weeks later, he said, this name came up in my head, Theo. And I didn't know where Theo came from, but that's what I've called him ever since. He said, humans don't have the vocal cords to pronounce angelic names. So don't worry, just call me what you want. So guardian angels are whole souls and really enormously powerful. The whole souls that are guardian angels are actually golden light beings. They're really, really old souls, and they take care of thousands of souls all at the same time. And they prefer the name servants of the Creator. Okay.
What's a 1 million GA? What was that?
What's a what? Oh, there's a little over 1 million guardian angels.
Oh, okay. So not everybody has a guardian angel, or guardian angels are assigned to multiple people?
Everybody has a guardian angel. Now, as an example, Theo takes care of 27,000 whole souls, and each of those whole souls is having 600 to 800 lives on average on Earth, and each one of those lives that are being lived all at the same time have 12 parallel lives. So it gets really complicated, but these golden light beings are able to handle this really amazing work. So they take care of thousands of whole souls, 6 to 12 fragments in a soul cluster. So each one of our souls has a cluster of soul fragments that are taking that are having these lives on average, 600 to 800, and each soul cluster has 6 to 12 fragments in a cluster, and each life has the 12 parallel lives.
So now the parallels are all happening at the same time. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All happening at the same time.
Even though that might be different time frames?
No. Okay. Okay. Say their question again.
Okay. So the shaman that you are, Stillwater, in the 1600s.
Right.
Is that life occurring the same time that you are in 2020?
Yes.
Okay.
And that makes it really difficult for people to understand. It's.
Well, because we don't understand time as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time is an illusion.
Right.
And as you see, these timelines we're on timeline number 6. So we're subdivided with timeline 5. And all the upper timelines all have easier lives, and all the lower timelines have harder lives. So as an example, on timelines 1 and 2, I died of congestive heart failure. So I'm already dead on that timeline.
We may have to have you go into that a little deeper, because that felt like it just skimmed the surface.
Okay. Let's see. Timelines are divided into frequencies. So frequencies, our timeline 5 and our timeline 6, and the frequency of 5 is fairly close together. In fact, there will be times when there's a bleed over, and you'll lose something, and it'll be on the other timeline, and then it'll come back again. This has happened to us numerous times. My wife once lost a pie at Thanksgiving, and it wound up in timeline 5. So it can be funny, or it can be frustrating when you're trying to find a set of keys or something like that. So they're divided into twos. But then, so in other words, timelines 1 through 4, then there's a bigger break in the frequency, and 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then there's another big break in frequency for 9, 10, 11, and timeline 12 is a non-physical timeline, and it's considered the perfect life. So in other words, our souls judge all the other lives and all the other timelines on the perfect life being lived on timeline 12, the non-physical life. Really
Are those the same things as dimensions, Tom?
Huh?
Do we consider those the same thing as like being in different dimensions? You know, the higher dimensions that.
No, they're not. They're not a dimension like dimension 3 or dimension 5. These are actually parallel lives going on, and there's little difference between our timeline 6 and timeline 5, with the exception of making some different choices. But basically, we're living in the same house that timeline 5 myself lives in. So, but when you get in farther out, like in timelines 9 through 11, when I graduated from TCU, I graduated with a degree in English and married my old college sweetheart. We moved to Colorado. We divorced. She took the kids back to New Jersey, and then I became a writer of science fiction, and then a writer of metaphysical books and all. So that's kind of how that life went. And here in this life, my wife and I will be married 50 years come August the 1st. So
can you talk about jumping timelines? Like, say you're in a kind of a rough timeline and you want to jump to the more the softer, gentler timeline, or the more successful you in that, different timeline.
No. Okay. Imagine a frequency, imagine our timeline frequency being a space like from here to here, or we can make it larger, but I'm trying to make it for the camera. Okay. There are people that are vibrationally at the bottom of timeline 6. Okay. Their vibrational levels are right towards the bottom. And then hopefully most of us are getting up close to the top of the frequency at timeline 6. We can't go into timeline 7, but we can at least get awfully close vibrationally.
So it's all about your frequency and vibration.
Yep. Okay. Now, one thing that I have neglected to mention, and I promised to do this when we got started, was to tie this in, tie the Gentle Way in with dowsing. Now, this information hasn't been published in my newsletter. They'll probably be in next week. So here's what I ask about dowsing. Theo, do dowsers receive their information through the pineal gland or elsewhere? Now, I've been told that the pineal gland, which so far our scientists only know it excretes or melatonin, but it has this other duty of receiving all telepathic type communications of every single type you can imagine, channeling, psychic, you name it, and it all comes through the pineal gland. Okay, so Theo, do dowsers receive their information through the pineal gland or elsewhere? In dowsing, the pineal gland is put on notice to open up to what the person dowsing is wanting to know. You could say the pineal gland is tuning itself to receive specific knowledge desired by the dowser. If the dowser were to request an MBO prior to dowsing, the results would be even better, a higher percentage, shall we say. The pineal gland passes that information to the brain, where certain muscles are then used to control the dowsing rods to move, or whatever type of dowsing you use, to move at the appropriate time and location. Now, then I ask Theo, is there an energetic field that is created around our bodies when dowsing? Yes, Tom, and that not only occurs during dowsing, but at other times as well. It is, in a way, part of your aura. You can verify this by taking a photograph using a special camera. Suddenly, your aura or energy field expands outward. Still, all the information flows through your pineal gland to be processed by your brain.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Now that's a bunch. But it's nice because it means that when you're about to douse for something, you can request a benevolent outcome, and hopefully you'll get better results by having requested that benevolent outcome.
I think that's a great practice to remember.
So request benevolent outcomes today. Now I say this every single morning. I expect great things today. I expect great things tomorrow. And I expect great things all this week. Thank you. Now, the reason I said that, Theo says, if you say this, within a couple of weeks, you'll start seeing things happen that you never thought to ask to happen. So as an example, if you're in real estate and you're saying this every day, suddenly somebody calls you up and says, I've got to unload this, this house. Can you help me? Whatever. And so you'll start having things happen to you that you never thought to ask. Now, keep in mind, if you go to my website, which is at www.thegentlewaybook.com, and click on signs, you'll see this sign, you'll see my daily affirmation, piece of creation, and then I also say this benevolent prayer every single morning. I ask that any and all beings assist and comfort anyone that I've ever harmed, either physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, or emotionally, in any past, present, or future life. And I ask any and all beings to assist and comfort the families and friends of anyone I have ever harmed in any way, in any past, present, or future life. Thank you. You'll find you'll be able to memorize that. These are all printable. And Theo explains that we're rewriting the past, present, and future all the time, all the same time. And by saying this every morning, you are affecting all of your future lives and even your past lives when you say that. You make things easier for you in these future lives by not having such great challenges or balancing or karma, if you want to call it that. It makes your future lives easier. So I highly recommend that you say that. Theo told me this is the very first life in all my hundreds of lives that I've ever thought, ever created this particular prayer. So it's very important. And so I'm on Facebook, Tom T. Moore 6, but of course I have Tom T. Moore author that you can, all you have to do is like, and you can get all my posts.
Right, and you have a very comprehensive newsletter. I think we discussed it earlier, that it's anywhere from 10 to 14 pages full of information on people's most benevolent outcomes, and you channeling information for Gaia and I guess different things. So
well, as I say, people send me questions in from all over the world. I get questions in this newsletter I just sent out today. I know I had questions from a guy in India, and I had a question from a lady in China, and I had some information sent to me by a guy in the UK. So it's all over, and it's slowly spreading. I probably won't be able to see the last of the spread, but you get the idea.
I guess I'd like to ask any of our, thank you, that was so helpful. Does anybody in our audience have questions for Tom? You can write it in the chat or let me know and I can unmute you.
Well, there was the first contact book.
Wow. So is there a benevolent prayer that we can say for our country and our economy right now?
I've got a couple in the newsletter that I think might work. I don't have the newsletter in front of me, but I mean, you can say, I ask any and all beings to aid and assist in bringing our economy back to full, full-blown health, the health of the economy, and I've got in the newsletter. I've got a benevolent prayer for the police to to work with the police. So there's so many things that you can say, but if you every morning I say, I send white light and love to every single continent, every single island, all the rivers, lakes, and streams, all the oceans and seas of the world, and I release this white light to go where it's needed the most, to light up the darkest corners of the planet, so that there's no more darkness, only light, no more secrets. So I like that last part.
Yeah. Okay, Jenny has a question. She says, thank you, it's very enlightening. What question would you ask the pendulum about Tulsa, Oklahoma this weekend? I guess you did. Can you be more specific? Are you talking about the Trump being in Tulsa? I mean, what question would you want to know?
Well, I mean, you could say,
oh, how to send peace. I see. She's saying how would we send peace to, I guess, everything that'll be happening in Tulsa this weekend?
I send white light and love to every single person that will attend the Trump rally in Tulsa, to make them, not make them, to assist in them being more understanding and gentle with all of their neighbors. Thank you. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We have any
Peace
other?
and love. Peaceful marches, peaceful protests.
Yeah. Well, and that our country, I guess, really the world, but I can start with our country, that, we, I guess, ask any and all beings to aid and assist the elevation of consciousness and change, and with peace and harmony for all beings concerned.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So it's
we would like to know a little bit more about your conversation with the ET.
Oh, okay. Well, back in 2008, my Theo and I were talking, and we were talking about some ruins on the other side of the world, or Europe or somewhere, and somehow the conversation got into the fact that there was an ET tuning into us. And once I got over the shock that I thought I was having a personal conversation with my own guardian angel, personal, and it wasn't. And I finally was told later on that I actually have a whole bunch of people tuning in, and they tune in out of love, and they tune in to find out what questions humans are asking these days to help them in understanding at what level of development we are. So that's one of the millions of ways that they are judging where we are and how our vibrational levels are raising. So anyway, I was eventually to find out that his name is Antura. He is from my home planet because I found out that he's part of my soul group or soul cluster. He's one of the 8 members of my soul cluster. His sole interest is explorations. So when he has lives on Earth, he's doing exploring. So as an example, he was Marco Polo's uncle and traveled the Silk Road before Marco Polo ever did and wrote about it. And he was Sacagawea, the Indian lady who guided the Lewis and Clark expedition. So those are some of his exploration lives. Now he's sort of taken a break from 800 lives on Earth so far, and he's having a life as an amphibian from this water planet called Nomo, which we even have in our history. I think of the indigenous people in Australia somewhere. I'm sorry, and so he's an amphibian. And in my book, First Contact, I have all sorts of descriptions about him and in detail. The one thing I forgot to ask in the book, and I just asked it a year or so ago, did he have a tail? Well, it turns out he has a tail. It tapers down. And naturally, the guy from India, he's a young guy, 17, he asked, well, when he sits down, and this is in the newsletter this week, when he sits down, and it's, by the way, it's posted on my website. Does his tail go out or does it tuck under? And he said, well, that's an amusing question. But he says, I guess since you've never met me, that would be something you'd wonder about. And so he said it tends to tuck under. So he's the cities on the planet Nomo are 5,000 feet down in the ocean. They were built on top of caves because they started out when they first ensouled the planet 18 million years ago. They started out in caves for their protection because there was like a giant whale creature that loved to eat little amphibian people. And they weren't amphibian at that time. They became amphibian over a long period of time. And so anyway, he's now orbiting Earth in a 3-mile wide, 20-story tall giant mothership with a crew of about 900 or so and a 750, 900 with their families, because a lot of the crew lives their whole lives on board the ship. And so their families are with them. And the only time the families were not with them was during what I called in the book the Reptilian War. They call it diplomatically the Great War, because now they're at peace with the reptilians, which are also called Dracos. And that's not in the book, but that's something, as I keep asking these hundreds and thousands of questions of him.
What are they doing orbiting Earth? Are they here to just watch, or are they here to assist right now? Or
no, there's the Earth Directive. They are not allowed to assist us. Now, disclosure was supposed to have happened a few months ago, but dear Mr. Putin, it was going to be in Russia because, and I was told, when I asked, I said, why Russia? And I was told because those people will not get excited like the people, as example, in the United States would, that they've been lied to all these years about all these meetings that the secret part of our government has been having with the ETs. That's been going on for, since the 40s or whatever. And So they would be much more accepted of that. And but he messed things up by grabbing, wanting to be like almost a czar, and his whole cabinet resigned, and so we're kind of stuck. So we're trying. I've been suggesting things to get around that, you know, getting Canada involved, or Dr. Stephen Greer, you know, maybe have a flyover real close or whatever, so that people can't deny that it didn't happen. Things like that. So we'll see. In my book, you know, I thought it was going to happen 3 or 4 years ago, and it hasn't happened yet.
I think a lot of people are aware that there are, you know, ETs and that things, but I think there's a lot of people that are, you know, that would be interesting timing if it happened now.
I know. Well, and they say it's not going to happen with this COVID pandemic right now, but yeah, you know, people are so freaked out between the pandemic and everything. And so that's, I'm hoping next year, but I don't know. I was just kind of standing in my house one day, and I had this little soft voice that came and said, "Tom, do you want, if we're not, you know, if a disclosure doesn't happen and you are not able to do your documentary on board the mothership, do you want to check out early?" And I said, "No, I don't. I still have my writing and speaking." So that's one probability that may happen, that it may not happen before I transition. But I'm supposed to be a pretty old guy when I transition, somewhere around, you know, 90 or so. We'll see.
Do we have any other questions? You have a lot of really amazing information.
Yeah, go to my website, everyone, and click on articles and news. You'll see every one of my newsletters since 2007 have been archived there. So you can see where you know, if somebody asked me if something was going to happen and it did, or if something was going to happen and it didn't. I put it all out there. I don't try and hide anything. Theo has told me that no one that does this type of work is perfect, okay? And so before I do a meditative session where I'm sitting at this computer and do a breathing exercise and put myself into an altered state, I request a benevolent outcome to receive these messages perfectly. But I still know that I'm somewhere in the 80 or 90% accuracy percentile, and I just have to live with that. And Theo just recently said, "Tom," he said, "you're doing really quite well, being that you're on the 6th timeline frequency." So there we go. That's
Are we all, did you say we're all on the 6th timeline frequency?
Every single one of us.
So
It's been described to me, it's like a cruise ship where you've got all these different decks, okay? Like that frequency I was describing. So if you can imagine a cruise ship, here's all these people on the lower decks all the way up to the penthouse. But when we get there, everybody's going to be there together. It's not going to be some of us left behind. Everybody gets there.
But everybody on the planet right now is in the 6th level, or?
Yes, on our timeline, Earth. Keep in mind, there's 12 Earths, okay? That's hard for us to imagine, but there's 12 Earths, and it's it boggles the mind that it's such a gigantic creation to do this Earth experiment that the creator of this universe wanted to do where we are working with 4 negative energies, which I just learned about within the last year or so, and the rest of the universe and all the other billions of other universes are all working with only 10 positive energies. So we're the star because we have conquered these negative energies. And so we not only have, there's about 25 of these motherships circling the earth at any time, taking millions of readings every day, far beyond our knowledge, though some of them have been explained to me. And they're taking all these readings because everybody wants to see how we did it. And that's one day in the future when we go to the stars, and that will not happen to about 3250, we will start taking little bits of negative energy to assist all these other beings in the universe to start raising their vibrational levels again, because they've been stuck for hundreds of thousands of years or more. So that's what we're going to contribute.
So Earth is a higher frequency, a higher vibration planet? Or this level of Earth, I guess?
Well, we were put in a special space-time continuum, okay, to do this experiment. And so within this experiment, we're the only planet in the universe that has all these different frequencies, which is really strange. And when we go traveling to the stars, I'm told that when we go to these other planets, we'll still be timelines, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. And actually, when we get to these planets, there'll be a spaceship from timeline 5 that'll visit them, and then timeline 6, but they all understand this, and it's, so I guess it's going to work its way out some way or another. We've got, the Earth experiment is going on for another 7,000 years. So we got a long time to go. We're not going to blow ourselves up.
We'll do a most benevolent outcome with all that.
Yeah.
Now, did I read somewhere too that you are telepathic?
Well, okay. I call myself a telepath because the lady that publishes the Sedona Journal of Emergence has lots of people that are channelers, okay? And she said, Tom, you're not a channel because you ask the questions, instead of somebody asking you the questions. And so I said, okay, so I'll call myself a telepath. That's what I am. Because remember, the pineal gland gets all sorts of telepathic. I in my newsletter today that I sent out, there was this psychic lady that did an 8-minute reading on me in 2018 that the guy in the UK just sent me today. I'd never seen it before. So I put it in there. And, she calls herself a psychic, but she's receiving information the same way we all do, and that's through the pineal gland. So you can call it ESP or clairvoyance or whatever it is, but it's all tied in here.
Whether we're dowsing or psychic, it's
Exactly. If you're dowsing, you're getting that information through your pineal gland.
From our higher selves.
So request a benevolent outcome before you douse, and you'll find you get better results.
Well, or better results with everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, does anyone have any other questions for Tom? This has been very enlightening.
But let me go back on that articles and news page. I have every single newsletter that I've ever put out. So start reading if you want to see if you want to possibly subscribe to this free newsletter. I don't charge for it. You can start with the newest one and just work your way back and to see what I've been putting out in the last month, 6 months, year, whatever.
someone asked a question, how do we sign up for the newsletter? So you go to the website, and we have it in the chat, which is thegentlewaybook.com.
Right. And on the opening page, there is a blue box. And simply click on the blue box, fill out, just your email address and your name. And then be sure when I think it asks you to confirm it, just confirm it, and you're signed up. And also, I would recommend when you do so, enter gentle news at thegentlewaybook.com in your list of approved email addresses, because I find some people will start receiving it, and then down a month or two later, suddenly their spam blockers on their end block it, and they don't get it, and they're emailing me saying, what happened?
Got it. So, yeah, thegentlewaybook.com. And you've got 3 Gentle Way books. You've got your Atlantis and Lemuria book, and you've got your First Contact. And I guess everyone can buy those from your website.
No, not from the website. Go to Amazon. That's the easiest way. Or you can go to my publisher's website, lighttechnology.com, to buy it. And gosh, there was something I was going to mention on that. The book I'm working on right now, and in the newsletter today, I have a conversation with the group soul for all the turtles on Earth. And so my next book I'm working on, that's kind of a long one, is The Gentle Way with Pets. And so in the first half of the book, I hope it's half, I'm asking for more stories to come in about MBOs that have happened with your pets. First half are going to be those stories. Then the last half is sort of like pulling the curtain away from the Wizard of Oz. And I have conversations with dog soul, cat soul. Recently it was parakeet soul, and I did turtles today. I still have snakes. There's a lot of different kinds of pets that people have.
So do you, are you talking to them, the pets, or you,
Not with the pets, but with the soul, the group soul that ensouls all of the turtles on Earth. I mean, if you can imagine, our souls, as an example, are having 500,000 to 1 million or more lives going on across the universe, all at the same time for their learning. Well, in the case of these group souls, like the dog soul ensouls every single dog on Earth. The cat soul only ensouls all the domesticated cats. All the other felines are ensouled by other group souls.
Okay, wait a minute. So all dogs have the same soul?
No. I didn't say that. I said all the dogs are ensouled by the same soul, one soul, for all the dogs on Earth. A piece of it, a fragment of its soul ensouls every single dog on Earth. Okay? Then for the cats, every single domesticated cat is ensouled by one soul.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I guess it makes me have the question, when someone they do that shamanic like soul retrieval, because different parts of your soul fragment when there's trauma sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So is that different than having fragments in your soul like you were discussing?
Okay, so there are 8 fragments of my soul in my soul cluster, okay? So I'm only one of 8 fragments having lives on Earth. Now, I'm not too familiar with the shamanic thing. And also keep in mind, this can also get into religious beliefs. And there are a lot of times that Theo has said, Tom, this gets into beliefs, allow. And you'll see that in some of my newsletters. So, I mean, there are things like that I've gotten, as an example, the Hindu religion is the oldest religion on earth. It's like over 55, maybe 59,000 years old. And so the people that founded that religion are looked on as gods because this information is so old. They took on a legend basis as compared to understanding that they were real people. So as an example, Krishna ensouled 77 times in a row as Krishna because he wanted to be sort of the savior of a group of people. And so towards the end of his lives, and this was like 30,000 years ago or so, towards the end of his lives, his aura was like a blue aura. And so that's why he's painted blue by Indian artists. But none of them know that he ensouled 77 times in a row. And I was there for a lot of his life. Not a lot, but I jump in ever so often because my sole interests are religions. And I've been around for the start of all the religions in the world, with the exception of Scientology and Rastafarian. And those two are in my future, which means I go back in time to have those lives.
Wow. I just dowsed and got a confirmation on the Krishna. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. So that's, creation is so much more grand and wondrous than we can imagine. And try and widen your box of beliefs because when you do, you'll appreciate the creator and the creation even that much more. There's 3 universes that are next to our universe, one of which we can see in the night sky. The other 2 are on the other side of the universe, so we can't see them. But what we think are stars in our universe are actually the next universe over.
Wow. Yeah, what we don't even know.
Yeah. And I've been told you're just at the tip of the iceberg, Tom.
I've got my little helper here tonight. This is Rex. So, well, Tom, thank you. This has been very enlightening. We
Okay,
very much
great.
appreciate you. Anybody else have any questions?
Sorry, I started out a little slow. Been a while since I did that talk.
Well, I think your most benevolent outcome has been so beneficial, at least for me. I can speak personally. I use it very often, and it's like clockwork. It's amazing. I don't think I've tried it with the lottery. I might ask some questions and try that. So
Yeah. In fact, in this newsletter, one lady told me that she did an MBO and going to the store, and on leaving, and she did an MBO for all of her store stuff and everything was perfect. And on the way out, she bought a scratch off lottery ticket and won $30. So
there you go.
there you go.
Hey, Tom, I have a question.
Well, thank you very much. I'm getting lots of thank yous in the chat, and everybody appreciates your time and your information. It's very interesting. So,
Okay.
we thank you, Tom.
Let's sign out.
We'll look forward to your interview on Gaia, and I hope everybody's able to sign up for your newsletter.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.